Hi, I'm Dan Kubisky. I'm the co-chair of the International Community for the Society of Professional Journalists. We have with us today Fred Wesley, who is the editor of Fiji Times. And there's been some real important developments on press freedom issues in Fiji. And so we asked Mr. Wesley to join us and explain these. So could you tell us why the pictures of you and so many reporters over the past couple of weeks have been smiling, why you've been smiling so much?
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be part of something like this, to I suppose to pass on the message and to also announce the fact that we have repealed a decree, an act that I had long ago labeled draconian. What happened was in 2010 we had something called the Media Industry Development Act. It initially started off as a decree put forward by the government then, and it eventually became an act. For 16 years, the media has operated under this MIDA Act 2010. And one of the challenges, or the major challenge we had was on content regulation, which was in Part 4 of the MIDA Act. And the Part 4 had a couple of sections. Section 22, which was really what we were harping on about and why we were adamant that it had to be repealed. Section 22 stated no media organization or company can broadcast or print or publish anything that was basically against the national interest, or we cannot print or publish anything or broadcast anything that was against public interest. And Part C of that particular section stated that we could not print or publish anything that would bring about communal discord. Now, Section 23 stated no story, no report that had content over 50 words could be printed, published, or put out on the internet without a byline. Now, the challenge for us is on Section 24, which basically outlined the penalties if there was a breach. Now, but before I get to the penalties, let me get straight back to Section 22. Section 22, while it stated that we could not print or publish anything that was against the national interest or anything that was against public interest, did not have an accompanying subsection or clarity or section to clarify what the national interest was, or what public interest was, and what we were supposed to be breaching. And there was also no clarity on who determined what was of national interest. Now, the interesting thing is everything that we print or publish or put out on the internet is of national interest. Otherwise, it wouldn't even be printed. Right. Everything is of public interest. Otherwise, it wouldn't even be printed. So here we are, coming to work for 16 years as editors, second guessing what's of national interest and what could be a possible breach. Now, when you get to Section 24, Section 24 clearly states the penalties. And what are the penalties? The penalties, if you breached Section 22, the penalty was, upon conviction, a company was liable to a fine not exceeding $100,000. An editor was, upon conviction, liable to a fine not exceeding $25,000 and a jail term of 2 years.
Okay,
now think about this.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're clear. There's a penalty for the institution, the news organization,
yes,
and
yes.
a penalty for the individual editor responsible
yes.
for the.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So basically, here we are. You have something like Damocles sword hanging over your head every day for 16 years. A lot of people don't understand why journalists were happy, while journalists were jumping up and down, because basically what you had was you had Damocles sword hanging over your head for 16 years. You had a section that forbid you from reporting against the national interest, against public interest. You did not have any clarity. You had no clarification on what constituted a breach. You had no clarity on who decided when there was a breach. And then people will obviously not realize that this impacted the way we worked. This impacted the way journalists work.
Sure.
Because of the fact that you are second guessing, you also need to be mindful of the fact that there obviously would be subtle references. There obviously would be suppression from the powers that be, because of the fact that there was no clarity on what these sections meant or what these sections stood for and what we were supposed to be breaching.
Right. Now, from what I read in your publication and in others, the repeal of this act was a major political issue. I mean, this was a major point in the most recent campaign.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. In fact, it was part of the campaign, by the government, by the parties that are now governing our country. One of their campaign messages was the repealing of the Media Industry Development Act, the repealing of the MIDA Act. And again, it hasn't been an easy journey for every journalist. It hasn't been an easy journey for their families as well. It hasn't been an easy journey for editors in particular and their families.
Yeah. And did it make you feel good that there was such public support for removing these shackles from the journalists, that the public voted in this new government, and part of the campaign, and one of their promises was to stand up for press freedom?
I suppose 16 years under the previous government, people obviously were looking for change.
Mm-hmm.
People obviously wanting change, and one of the things that we need to be reminding ourselves about is how information was suppressed over the years, how we didn't have complete freedom to push for answers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, I'll keep referring to Section 22. You can't print anything against the national interest and against public interest, and no accompanying subsection, no accompanying section to clarify what that entails. And then you need to be mindful of the fact that you also have a scenario where we are not sure at all who determines what we are breaching and when that breach could be. So again, I will always go back to Damocles sword. The reference to Damocles sword, it hung over our heads for 16 years.
Right. And during those 16 years, Fiji, in the reports on press freedom, when comparing them to other democracies and other countries, even in the area, you were near the bottom.
Yes, we were.
Press freedom.
Yes, we were.
Yeah.
Yes, we were. We were near the bottom, and again, we obviously I've had journalists who, for want of a better word, went through major challenges in their lives. I had a journalist who was thrown in a cell because there were apparently orders from above. From above, we don't know who from. And subsequently, this journalist was released because one of the senior officers came in, saw him, and questioned why he was held in a cell. We had another journalist who was harassed by armed soldiers. And a lot of these things have not been printed anywhere. A lot of the challenges that our men and women have faced have not been printed anywhere, because you always had that cloud of uncertainty, that cloud of suspicion, and that cloud of the unknown. You had laws, you just did not know who determined what was a possible breach. So with that hanging over your heads, you have to be extremely careful with what you printed, what you published, or what you broadcast.
And this was repealed by a rather dramatic vote. It was something like 29 in favor and only 2 or 3.
22 against, and 3 did not vote.
Right.
But again, in saying that, I referred to the fact that members of the opposition now, who were in government then, obviously they pushed for this decree, this act. They were the ones who put it in place, and it's common sense that they would be voting against it.
Right.
Voting against the repealing of this act.
But even with the repeal, you had a government minister remind the media, you can't go off and do whatever you want. And now I've read your publication. It doesn't look like you go off and do whatever you want. You have good journalism. You report the facts and you back it up.
Yes.
What kind of message is this minister trying to give you then?
Well, I suppose it's a reminder for all of us. For us as an organization, the Fiji Times, we were born on September 4, 1869. This is our 153rd year. We are now 153 years old. Every staff member of the Fiji Times now carries the hopes and aspirations of not only their family members, but members of the public. Members of the public who've been sort of suppressed over 16 years, who wanted change for 16 years. So there's a huge responsibility on our shoulders, and again, in saying that, we're also mindful of our responsibility as an organization. Our responsibility as a mainstream media company. We realize that with this great power comes a greater sense of responsibility. We also are mindful of media ethics, the code of ethics that we have in place, and we're looking forward to the formation of a media council that will sort of act as a police force for media organizations in our country. But surely, we're not going to go out there and with all guns blazing in a sort of free for all. I suppose there's always that element of honesty, trust that we need to uphold, and the values that must be placed on freedom of expression, democracy, and also the freedom of the media.
Right. Now you mentioned the media council. How is that going to be arranged? Is that something just among the media outlets, or is this government? How is that going to be set up?
Well, we've just started discussions on that to set up the council, but from the outset, I'd probably hope to see. I hope to see members of the media, members of the public, maybe. And obviously, if we'll decide whether there's a need for government input.
Okay.
But I suppose at the end of the day, basically what you want is a council that will hold up the media, that will ensure that the media does what it's supposed to be doing,
and support the principles of free press and freedom of expression.
Yes.
Mr. Wesley, I want to thank you very much for taking time. I know you've got a crazy busy schedule. Thank you for explaining this to us. We will be keeping an eye on how things are going there, and we hope we can have you back again once the media council is set up, and you can give us your views on how that works for you.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me.
Do you have any last word, anything last, because I know you wrote beautifully in your editorial that you will never
Yes.
forget the repressive media environment you lived in. And you're not afraid to hold power to account. Do you have any other words that will top that, or some of your earlier comments?
No, I suppose, like for us, I was actually in a workshop in Vanuatu when the act was repealed in Parliament. When it was endorsed in cabinet, I had a very good feeling that the act would eventually be repealed. And when it was repealed, I got the message very early, just a few minutes after it was repealed. And I was in this workshop. I was sitting there. I had an overwhelming flow of emotions. I just I reflected on 16 years of having to work differently. As an editor, I had to go through pages almost all the news pages every day. I had to be mindful of what was online, and it got to a stage where because we are always second guessing, it got to a stage where every morning I'd wake up, fingers crossed that nothing had gone wrong the previous night. And then and if the lawyers didn't call me up in the morning to tell me that there's something wrong, the day started off well. But then, it's kind of interesting when I look back at how life was. For an editor like me, it was the act actually dictated how we lived our lives, because no matter where I went or what I did, I could be held accountable for something that happened back home. So I had to be aware of what was going in, or what was going on the paper. I had to be aware of what was going online. It was a hectic lifestyle. It wasn't a lifestyle that any other editor would want to have. But in saying that, when it was repealed, I just had this sense of gratitude. This sense of I don't know, appreciation of something removed, something bad that was removed, and I said good riddance to it. But we are now focused on playing our part in the development of our nation, on playing our part in holding power to account, and on playing our part in disseminating information that will allow Fijians, wherever they are, to make well-informed decisions every day. And I'll go straight back to what I said much earlier. There's a sense of power, but with this power comes a greater sense of responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.